Imagine this. You're in a relationship and everything seems fine, until one day a simple conversation turns into an argument. You don't even know how it escalated so quickly. Words were said, emotions ran high, and now there's tension. But what if I told you that the way you communicate can determine the success or failure of your relationship? That a few key shifts in how you talk and listen can completely transform the way you connect with your partner. In this video, we're diving deep into the power of communication in romantic relationships. You'll discover the hidden forces at play when you speak, the mistakes that most people make without realizing, and, most importantly, how to master communication to strengthen attraction, trust, and long-term connection. And stay with me until the end, because the last insight I'm going to share is the most powerful of all. It's the key to unlocking true understanding between you and your partner. Before we start, make sure to subscribe to Female Red Pill, hit the like button, and drop a comment below. Tell me, have you ever experienced a situation where a simple conversation turned into a misunderstanding? Let's get into it. Most people think communication is just about words, but words are only a small fraction of what truly influences a relationship. Renowned psychologist Dr. Albert Mehrabian discovered that only 7% of communication is verbal. The rest is body language and tone of voice. Yet, most people focus only on what they say, ignoring how they say it. That's why misunderstandings are so common. One of the biggest communication traps in relationships is the assumption that speaking more equals better understanding. It doesn't. In fact, one of the core ideas in critical red pill analysis of relationships is that men and women communicate differently, biologically, neurologically, and socially. Books like The Female Brain by Luann Brizendine and The Way of Men by Jack Donovan explain that women tend to use communication to build connection, while men are often more solution-focused. This fundamental difference is why couples so often feel unheard. They're speaking different languages without realizing it. So how do you bridge this gap? The first step is understanding that men and women use words differently. Women often communicate in a way that's indirect, hinting at their feelings rather than stating them outright. A woman might say, "I feel like we don't spend time together anymore." But what she really means is, "I need more attention from you." Men, on the other hand, tend to be more direct. "I'm busy this week." To the female ear, this might sound like rejection, when in reality it's just a fact. The problem is not what's being said, it's how it's being received. This is why mastering active listening is crucial. Active listening isn't just about hearing words, it's about decoding their meaning. Instead of reacting emotionally, pause and ask yourself, what is my partner really trying to say? A powerful technique is mirroring, repeating back what your partner has said in your own words. For example, if she says, "You never listen to me," instead of getting defensive, you could say, "It sounds like you feel unheard. Can you tell me more about that?" This simple shift transforms arguments into conversations. But here's where it gets interesting. True communication is not about talking more, it's about creating emotional safety. Without emotional safety, conversations turn into battles. What makes someone feel emotionally safe? Respect, consistency, a sense that they can express themselves without fear of attack or dismissal. This is why high-value men and women are selective with their words. They don't just talk, they communicate with purpose. And if you think this is powerful, just wait until you hear the next part, because we're about to uncover the one communication habit that silently destroys relationships. If you're ready, let me know in the comments. And if you haven't yet, make sure to like and subscribe. Now let's talk about the silent killer of relationships, contempt. Dr. John Gottman, one of the most respected relationship researchers, found that contempt is the single strongest predictor of divorce. But what is contempt? It's more than just arguing or disagreeing. It's the subtle, often unnoticed ways that partners undermine each other with sarcasm, eye-rolling, dismissiveness, or a tone of superiority. If you've ever felt like your partner is belittling you rather than communicating with you, you've experienced contempt. And here's the scary part. Contempt isn't always obvious. Many people don't even realize they're doing it. It can appear in small ways, like mocking your partner's concerns, giving passive-aggressive responses, or using phrases like, "you always," or "you never," which instantly put the other person on the defensive. The critical red pill analysis of communication recognizes that contempt is often the result of long-standing resentment. When a partner feels unheard, disrespected, or unappreciated for too long, They stop trying to resolve issues constructively and instead express their frustration through subtle attacks. This is why you'll often see women in long-term relationships complaining that their partner just doesn't get it, while men withdraw, feeling like nothing they say is ever good enough. So how do you eliminate contempt before it destroys your relationship? The key is to replace criticism with curiosity. Instead of assuming the worst about your partner's words or actions, ask yourself, what if there's a different way to see this? For example, if your partner seems irritated, instead of thinking, they don't care about me, try, maybe they had a rough day. How can I approach this differently? The best communicators in relationships practice what I call pre-framing. Pre-framing means setting the tone before difficult conversations so they don't escalate into fights. Instead of jumping straight into a complaint, start with something that reassures your partner that you're on the same team. A simple phrase like, I love you, and I just want us to understand each other better, can completely change how your words are received. Another powerful tool is learning to pause before reacting. Think about this. Have you ever said something in the heat of the moment that you later regretted? Of course, we all have. But high-value men and women, those who command respect in their relationships, develop emotional control. Before responding to something triggering, they take a breath, step back, and ask themselves, is my reaction going to bring us closer or push us apart? This leads us to another major concept in critical red pill communication analysis, the balance of power in dialogue. Many people assume that in relationships, the one who talks the most has the most power. But in reality, the one who listens strategically holds the real control. Why? Because they gather more information, understand their partner's emotions, and can direct the conversation with precision. Psychologist Jordan Peterson explains that the best communicators are those who listen with the intent to understand, not just to reply. Instead of waiting for their turn to speak, they observe their partner's tone, body language, and emotional state. This allows them to respond in a way that de-escalates tension instead of fueling it. And here's something that most people never realize about communication. It's not just about what you say, it's about how you make the other person feel. If every conversation leaves your partner feeling unheard, criticized, or defensive, it won't matter how many words you use. Communication will fail. But if you master the ability to make your partner feel understood, respected, and emotionally safe, even the toughest conversations become opportunities for connection. Now, we've uncovered some powerful insights, but in the next part, we're going even deeper. Because there's one communication mistake that nearly everyone makes, and it's the reason so many relationships slowly lose their spark. If you've ever felt like the chemistry in your relationship has faded over time, you need to hear this. Drop a comment if this is making sense to you so far, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Now, let's talk about the most overlooked communication mistake that silently kills attraction in relationships: predictability. Most people think that communication is just about clarity and honesty. While those are important, there's another key element that people rarely talk about: emotional tension. This is the push and pull, the dynamic energy that makes conversations feel alive, engaging, and even a little exciting. When communication becomes too predictable, too routine, and too safe, relationships start to feel stagnant. Here's where critical red pill analysis comes in. Men and women are biologically wired to respond differently to emotional tension in communication. Books like The Rational Male by Rollo Tomassi and Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus by John Gray explain that women are naturally drawn to emotional stimulation. They crave variety in conversation, not just logical exchanges. Meanwhile, men often default to problem-solving mode, which, while useful, can sometimes make interactions feel mechanical or transactional. Think about it. Have you ever been in a conversation with your partner where you're trying to solve a problem, but they just seem frustrated instead of appreciative? That's because not every conversation is about solutions. Some are about emotional engagement. If a woman says, "I feel like you don't care," and the man responds with, "Of course I care. I just did X, Y, and Z for you," he might think he's reassuring her. But in reality, he's missing the deeper emotional subtext. She's not looking for logic. She's looking for a feeling of connection. So how do you keep communication emotionally engaging? One of the best strategies is strategic unpredictability. This doesn't mean playing mind games. It means occasionally breaking patterns to keep things interesting. Instead of always responding in the expected way, try switching things up. If your partner asks, "Do you love me?" instead of saying a flat yes, tease them playfully. "I don't know. Let me think about it. Maybe if you cook me something amazing tonight, I'll decide." This keeps the interaction light, fun, and engaging, which is exactly what fuels long-term attraction. Another overlooked technique is delayed responses. High-value communicators don't rush to fill silence. They use it strategically. Instead of instantly replying to everything, take a pause. Look into their eyes for a second before responding. This small shift creates presence and intensity, making every word feel more meaningful. Now let's talk about power dynamics in conversation, because whether you realize it or not, every interaction in a relationship has an unspoken power balance. In Red Pill Critique, one of the biggest mistakes people make is over-validating their partner's emotions while neglecting their own. This often happens in relationships where one person is constantly trying to fix things to keep the peace, while the other gets used to dictating the emotional climate. Psychologist Robert Glover, in his book, No More Mr. Nice Guy, explains that many people, especially men, fall into the trap of seeking approval through communication, rather than asserting their own perspective. This is why some relationships feel one-sided, because one person is doing all the emotional labor, while the other gets comfortable leading the narrative. So how do you balance power in communication? It starts with owning your perspective. Instead of defaulting to agreement just to avoid conflict, say what you really mean, even if it risks disagreement. Respect is built through authenticity, not through constant accommodation. If your partner says, "I don't like when you do X," instead of immediately apologizing out of fear, try saying, "I hear you, but this is something that's important to me. Let's talk about it." This small shift reestablishes mutual respect rather than setting a dynamic where one person is always bending. Now we're getting into the real power of communication. And in the final part, I'm going to reveal the ultimate communication secret that only the most successful relationships understand. If you think communication is just about talking, you're missing the biggest piece of the puzzle. Stay with me, because this next insight will change the way you see relationships forever. Drop a comment if this is resonating with you, and if you haven't already, hit that like button and subscribe. Now let's unlock the ultimate communication secret, the one that separates failing relationships from the strongest, most passionate ones. Most people believe that good communication is about expressing yourself clearly, but here's the truth. Real connection isn't about what you say. It's about what your partner feels when they're with you. This is where most relationships fail. Couples focus so much on words, but they forget that communication is an emotional experience. The tone you use, the way you look at your partner, the energy you bring into conversations, all of this matters more than the words themselves. Dr. David Buss, one of the world's leading experts on evolutionary psychology, explains in his book, The Evolution of Desire, that humans are wired to respond to emotional presence. When someone speaks to us with genuine warmth, certainty, or intensity, our brain picks up on those signals instinctively. This is why some people can say the exact same words, but one person makes you feel safe and connected, while the other makes you feel dismissed or ignored. This brings us to the most powerful communication skill of all, emotional attunement. Emotional attunement means feeling the conversation rather than just hearing it. It's about sensing your partner's emotions, reading between the lines, and responding in a way that makes them feel truly seen. This is what creates deep, lasting intimacy. Let me ask you something. Have you ever been in a conversation where the other person was technically listening, but you could tell they weren't really there? Maybe they nodded along, but their energy felt distant. That's because they were hearing you, but not attuning to you. And this is why so many relationships struggle. Partners speak, but they don't actually connect. So, how do you master emotional attunement? The secret is presence. When your partner speaks, don't just listen. Absorb. Look at their facial expressions. Pay attention to the shifts in their tone, and most importantly, mirror their emotions subtly. If they're excited, show excitement. If they're upset, soften your tone. This makes them feel emotionally safe, which deepens trust and attraction on a subconscious level. Now here's where this gets really powerful, because the way you end conversations is just as important as how you start them. Final impressions matter more than first impressions. Think about this. If a conversation ends in frustration or coldness, That's the feeling that lingers in your partner's mind. But if you consciously end interactions on a note of warmth, reassurance, or even playful tension, it reprograms how your partner experiences your relationship over time. High-value communicators know this secret. They never let a conversation end in negativity. Even if there was disagreement, they find a way to close with connection. Whether it's a reassuring touch, a playful tease, or even a simple, "Hey, I love you. We'll figure this out." Now let's bring it all together. We've uncovered some of the most powerful insights about communication in relationships. Words matter, but tone, body language, and emotional energy matter more. Contempt is the silent killer of relationships, but curiosity and respect can save them. Strategic unpredictability keeps attraction alive. Avoid becoming too predictable. The real power in communication isn't in talking, it's in listening strategically. Emotional attunement is the highest level of communication. It's the key to deep connection. If you apply these principles, your relationships will never be the same. You'll notice that conflicts become easier to resolve. Attraction stays alive for longer, and most importantly, you and your partner will feel truly understood. And now I want to hear from you. Which of these insights hit you the hardest? Drop a comment below and let's talk about it. And if you found this video valuable, make sure to subscribe to Female Red Pill, hit that like button, and share this with someone who needs to hear it. And before you go, check out these 2 videos on the screen. They'll take your understanding of relationships even deeper. Click on one now, and I'll see you there.